And
Well,
with that,
Brian, and thank you. If we could get a round of applause for Brian, too. Excellent job. And maybe just one more word. And Tom, I certainly appreciated your thoughts on the conference. As we noted, this is a big team effort by a lot of different parties here: the CSBS and the commissioners, FDIC across its enterprise, and the Federal Reserve across its enterprise. But we also know this is an unusual format, right? There's lots of research conferences out there, and we know what that format looks like generally. There's lots of bankers conferences out there, and we know what that format looks like generally. And our goal here is to really find a mechanism to combine all of those. And I just want to point out, when I think about our community bankers who are directly involved in the program: Corey, Mary, Orv, Liz, Shaza, Tom, Billy, and of course Leanne. I see you back there as well. I can tell you, when you first call a banker and say, "Hey, here's what we're trying to do," the first question is, "Okay, tell me more." What is this exactly? But I'll tell you, after just a couple minutes, it's very quick to yes. And so I think we as a conference committee are incredibly grateful to all of you for doing something that I think is maybe a little bit outside of the norm, but we think it's incredibly valuable to what we're trying to do here, and I hope you feel the same. It seems like you do, based on some of the feedback we've heard. And I guess I'll just say, I know it's 4,500 charters, but it's still kind of a tight knit and smaller community. So please tell your banker friends, because we're going to be calling. So at this time, I would like to invite Karen Lawson up to close the 2024 Community Bank Research Conference. Karen is Executive Vice President of Policy and Supervision at the Conference's State Bank Supervisors, an organization, obviously one of our co-sponsors, that Karen joined in July of 2021. Prior to that, Karen had 25 years at the Michigan Department of Insurance and Financial Services, and she led the agency's bank regulatory program for 9 of those years. Karen is also a member of the conference planning committee and has been for a number of years. She is an excellent committee member, a pleasure to work with, and a friend. And so I'm excited to introduce Karen, who will also be discussing the 2024 John W. Ryan Award for Most Significant Contribution to Community Banking Research paper. So, Karen?
Well, thank you, Jim. So, Carl, yesterday as you wrapped things up, you said you were standing between everyone getting to drinks and food. I'm standing between everyone going home. So, interesting about going last. So many comments have been picked up. Tom, you took one of my lines too about like good bank, go there. So, rather than repeat, we've only been here a few hours today. Rather than repeat what you've already heard today, Carl did such a great job wrapping up yesterday. Just a few thoughts. Be remiss if I did not thank our colleagues, my colleagues at CSBS, and our colleagues through the FDIC and the Federal Reserve System. So much goes into this. I know you all have heard that, but so much goes into this conference. There were so many pieces to it. The research, the annual survey, the emerging scholars, the case study competition. So there's a lot that goes into creating this day and a half. So thank you very much to all my colleagues, especially you, Jim. You have been our leader on the planning committee since day one, so back to 2013. Someone else I want to recognize, I'm sorry, my print is really, really small here. John Kandrak, where are you, John? There you are, John. Really leading the research effort for our research conference. Can't say enough how much I appreciate all of your work. So thank you, John. So we have, as a team, as a conference planning committee, designated the most significant contribution to community banking research, and that is a mouthful. I know Orv mentioned a mouthful. That's a mouthful, which in a few years ago we renamed the John W. Ryan Award. So I'm just going to call it the John Ryan Award. A little history on this. We began in, like I said, 2018, just to designate what paper we thought would have the most impact on community banking research, obviously, because that's the name. But a little bit about, actually, I have before me a lot of it about John Ryan, so I'm going to knock it down to a little bit. Many of you in this room knew John as a colleague, as a friend for a number of years. Others in the room may not know who John is. So in my mind, John really was the father of this conference. Between John and Julie Stackhouse, who was formerly here of the St. Louis Fed, it was born of an idea. So John was our CEO at CSBS from 2011 until his untimely passing in May of 2022. A little bit about John's background. John was a UC Berkeley graduate, but in the summer he worked at his father's community bank. So community banking was in his blood from the beginning. He worked on Regal Neal in his time at the Hill. He worked a fellowship for Financial Services Commission in Brussels, working on public policy. As I mentioned, he was our CEO. He had impact on federal legislation, including Gramm-Leach-Bliley, Dodd-Frank, and others. And he very much understood the importance of, I think the tagline here is where research and policy meet, but it's also about the art and the science of community banking. So the art, the practitioners, the community bankers, and we just heard from a few of them in our last panel here. And then the science was the research. So this year's most significant contribution to community banking research, the Conference Research Committee selected the paper, The Economics of Market-Based Deposit Insurance, work by, and come on, I saw you, Edward, come on up, work by Edward Kim and Tosh Paranandam from the University of Michigan, go blue, and Shohini Kundu from UCLA. And I know, Shohini, you were here earlier, you still around. So join me. So, with that, I think we're all good to wrap up, are we not, Jim? So thank you all for joining us today, whether you're here in person or online. It's been a great day and a half. Thank you for attending. For those also, the survey will be posted. You'll be sent to you to your survey on the on the conference, and this year's proceedings. We're going to cut off the last 30 seconds here of the recording of this year's conference, but it will be available at communitybanking.org. So please join me in thanking all the participants, and see you next year, I hope.